Welcome to another episode of Seattle House Mafia Industry Interviews. I am Phil, your host. Today's guest was born in Chicago, cut her musical teeth in the Bay Area, has played San Francisco Pride, was in rotation at the End Up, and did guest spots at Monarch, The Great Northern, and Wish. Last year, she kicked off her own record label, Sage Rites, and is currently working with several notable DJ producers, creating new tracks. Her latest collaboration with Joe Bellingham, a track called Universal Energy, releases August 16th. She will also be performing at Viva's upcoming 12-hour party at Monkey Loft, August 17th. We are excited to have Chris Offutt, a.k.a. Black Velveteen, in studio. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I love it. I love it. And did I say your last name right?
Yeah, perfect.
Wow. Well, pretty phonetic, but it would be me to screw it all up. Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I guess normally, what's funny, if you've watched any of these episodes, normally I'll tell like sort of a funny or quirky story about how I ran into or got to know or met some of our guests. And I don't really have that with you. But what's cool about it is it kind of ties in because there's like, I've listened to a bunch of your DJ mixes. I've seen you out live. You know, we're always friendly, but there's a mystique about you, and I don't know how intentional it is or not. And you've probably heard it before, but like I don't have that story, and I'm just wondering, like, is that sort of a thing with you, like?
No, I try not to be mysterious.
Mystique is good though.
When we first moved back here in 2019, because we lived here before, and we moved to the Bay Area, and I think it was 2008.
Okay.
So we moved to Sacramento. This is all for my job. And we were doing completely different things back then, but we were enjoying music. I wasn't DJing at that time.
Okay.
So when I came back in 2019, I had obviously been DJing in the Bay Area, had a radio show, all of that good stuff. And I just really wanted to get back into the music scene in Seattle as a DJ. Gotcha. And so, what do you do when you want to do that? You go out to the clubs, you meet people, and you get to know, the crews. Right. And so that's what I did. Like, I think we moved back here, I want to say it was in March.
Okay.
So it was perfect, right? So I was here for a couple months. I had decided I was going to take the year off and not worry about work for about a year. Little did I know COVID was coming the next year. And so that really gave me the opportunity and the latitude to meet a bunch of people and, and I had some connections in the Bay Area that were connected to the music scene here, like Ramiro.
Okay.
I had a really good friend from my crew, Air Pusher, in the Bay Area.
Okay.
And so he introduced me to Ramiro. He's like, you gotta meet Ramiro. He's a great guy.
Super cool.
And so actually Ramiro gave me my first gig, literally. So I did a show in San Francisco for Air Pusher. We have this annual event called Steampunk Masquerade, and then flew in and did Forest for the Trees. And that's how it all started.
Gotcha. Wow. That's so cool. And hold on for 1 second. I'm going to turn on this timer because I lose track of time if I don't. Paul's going to edit this part out.
That's my bad. I should have done that.
No, it's good. It just keeps me honest.
I think that's, because you don't want to look at your watch.
No, that's, and I was trying to see if I could turn my timer on my phone. I was like, fuck, I'm not going to pick it. Because it will auto shut off. And back to it.
Yeah, okay. It's like a screensaver or whatever on your phone.
Annoying. Well, okay. So you were here, you went back to the Bay Area. Now, I know from reading your bio, you grew up in Southside Chicago.
Yep.
Right? And I don't know, I've spent very little time in Chicago, a little bit. No, it's a big music town. I know the South Side can be kind of rough too, right? Depending on, at least, I don't want to be cliche, but right?
Well, yeah, we were actually, so we moved. So originally like pretty far south side Chicago.
Okay.
And then when I was in like middle school, high school, we moved to Hyde Park, which is, where That's like middle point. And then as an adult, I lived in what we call the Gold Coast area in Chicago. And, I moved out to Seattle at a pretty young age because I went to University of Puget Sound in Tacoma.
Okay.
Yeah. And so from there, I was like, I like this place. I want to move. But I didn't want to live in Tacoma. I was like, Seattle. Seattle's probably a good spot. So, yeah, Chicago, for me, it was more of musically the house music for sure. And then just enjoying that as more of a dancer on the dance floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were in Chicago. That's what I was trying to put together in your bio. So you went Chicago, Seattle, then Bay Area, then back to Seattle.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Got it. See?
A little bit of moving around.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so when did you leave Chicago for Seattle? That was college?
It was college, and then I actually wound up moving back to Chicago for a few years. And then I had two friends that were just like, we got to get out of Chicago. So I'm like, okay, I'm coming with you. So we did a U-Haul, and we drove cross country, and we moved in together. And actually, we were in Magnolia, of all places.
Okay.
And at that time, I was working for Starwood Hotels. So I got transferred out to the Sheraton Seattle. And so I had a job. I did the smart thing. I was like, I can't go anyplace unless I have a job. So I had a job. And that's how it started. So Magnolia. And then I got apartment on Capitol Hill with a friend that I met at work. I was a great roommate because I was never there.
Yeah, you're the perfect kind of roommate.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And then I bought a townhouse and, all of that other stuff. Yeah.
Gotcha. That now it makes sense after and so you were in the scene in Chicago when that was happening, like.
Oh yeah, we went out like all the time, and all of the places there, it was the music there. I don't even know how to describe. There is just a specific sound to Chicago house music.
Yep.
And you just, know it. And there were just certain spots that, always had great DJs. And that was just the thing to do on the weekends.
Yeah. And did you start DJing when you were in Chicago, or was it not? Okay.
No, it was when I came out. So I was in Seattle, and I definitely had a lot of interest in music. I wasn't really like, I want to do this. I was kind of like, I just want to be in the clubs. So I did that. And then when I moved down to the Bay Area, I had a friend that actually did vinyl. Yeah. And so he was like, hey, you want to learn how to DJ? That's kind of like the story of my life. People just kind of suggest things, and I'm kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So I would go over to his place, like probably every weekend, and he would just sit there in the living room. The decks were someplace in the dining room, and he would just let me pick out stuff. Like I didn't have, obviously, the collection.
Sure.
So I had to use whatever music he had, we had similar tastes, so it was good. And I would be there for like 2 or 3 hours, probably doing a few train wrecks.
Yeah.
And
a few probably.
And he never got up, he would just, he was just there, but if I asked him to help for anything, he would come over and he'd be like, well, try this or try that. But that's where I learned how to pick tracks appropriately and beat match.
Right. Going through his collection.
Yep. That's how I learned. And so then from there, I decided that I wanted to try to do a radio show. So
that was going to be my next question. Yeah, talk to me about that for a second.
So this is kind of a funny story. As a kid, I I had this thing where I would kind of pretend that I had my own radio show, and I would even actually build in commercials. I would tape it.
Love it.
So, and then I figured out as I got older, it's like nobody likes the commercials. They just want to hear the music, right? So I picked out a radio station. It was a London-based radio station called FNU. And they had all of these different channels. Like they had house, they had techno, I think they had like drum and bass. Like I think it was 5, right?
Okay.
And so I'm like, well, let me try the techno channel. So I send in a mix, and the guy's like, yeah, no, this is not techno. It's really good. I'm going to send this over to the house manager, the station manager. So he sends it over to the guy's name is Danny. Danny listens to it, and then he says, hey, okay, so you have a 2-hour slot like every 2 weeks. I'm like, what?
Nice.
Yeah. So that was my first radio show. I think that went on for like maybe 2 years or 3 years. And then that station just completely went techno.
Oh, interesting. So they just consolidated all the subgenres together.
Okay. Yeah. So everything, well, they actually got rid of all of that. So then it was just techno.
See, I almost just spilled that. Did you see that?
It was close, but you didn't have the arms going.
It was just a little more. I would have knocked it over. So they got rid of everything but techno.
Yep.
So were you doing a pre-recorded mix, and then were you also talking on the mix? Like, were you introducing tracks or just? Mix?
I just played it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So, I had the option to do an intro.
Right.
And at that time, I was just kind of like, I don't know if I want to actually hear my voice on the radio, So I just, I would do a pre-recorded mix and then send it. And I would just record straight through, unless it was just really obviously something that, needed to be reworked. Sure. Then I would just record it again.
Right.
I don't go in and physically edit any of my mixes.
I've never been that way either. I was going to ask because were you just recording to digital? What were you sending them? Just like an MP3 of your mix?
Yeah, it would be a MP3. So I recorded on my DACs.
Yeah.
And then upload it. So I was like, I had privileges to just go ahead and upload it, upload the track list.
What was it about? What was it about not, is it just annoying to go in and edit it, or does it not feel genuine, or what? Because I've never done that either.
It feels like a cheat to me.
I feel the same way.
And I also feel like it's good sometimes for people to hear if there's just a slight thing that happens. Like I don't think anybody does it perfectly. And if they do, great. But I also think it's good for like up and coming DJs to see that, to know that, hey, that's okay. Obviously if it's really kind of glaring, then I'll just go and re-record it.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Or something happens or stop the wrong day. I've done that. I've done it all, right? We've done it all.
Yes.
But I mean, I was even watching, it's funny, I was watching, I think it was Mark Farina Defected Radio. And there was a few times where he was dragging a little bit, like the beats were dragging. Yeah. And he just fixed it.
You just keep going.
No big deal. That's just what you do. Yeah, that's cool. It's good for people to hear that too. I think the idea of perfect mixing, I like adding the human element, and there will be times like, if it's a fuck up, it's a fuck up, and I'm the same way. I'll just redo it. I'm like, or if I did this one mix a while back where there was like a Montel Jordan sample, and for some reason I thought it was a good idea, and then when I listened to the mix, I'm like, that song's out.
Right. Yeah, that's happened a couple of times before too. Yeah.
So okay, cool. So you did the radio thing, and then. Then you stayed with the radio, because I don't fully understand the whole Proton radio piece, because I was looking through your SoundCloud and there's like a lot of Proton Amplify mixes with you. Like what's that relationship and what's all that about?
So let me back up and
please.
say from FNoob, then I was offered a show on pure.fm.
Okay.
And so that was supposed to be like deep house. So the first radio show was like progressions in house. So my concept there was like you would go different genres of house. So it could be tech house, it could be deep house, it could be house.
See.
And so you had this 2 hours to go on that journey.
Right.
So then the pure.fm show was more definitely like they wanted deep house, and I was like, sure, that's great. And so then that company or the person that owned that, it changed hands. And so I'm like, I was doing guest mixes for different stations, and I was asked to do a couple of shows for Proton.
Okay.
And I remember thinking, so we're coming back from Burning Man one year. I forget what year it was. Maybe it was, I don't know, maybe 2017. And I was thinking to myself, it's like, I need another radio show because I didn't have anything to do.
Right.
And I got an email from Proton saying, hey, would you be interested in doing a radio show for us? And I'm like, sure. And I think it was because of the guest mixes I had done for them. Right. So,
but you're telling me this just sort of manifested on a drive back, hungover from Burning Man. You're like, yeah, I need another radio show. And you get to your inbox and there it is.
That's what happened.
God
it was just weird.
I love it. But it's fun how that stuff works out, right?
I mean, a side note to all of this too is like, one of the heads of Proton was actually involved pretty heavily in Air Pusher.
Okay.
So I met him, and he was actually responsible for doing the scheduling because we would have a monthly at Monarch.
Okay.
So every month we would have this thing where we were, just doing stuff for the community and just having like a 3 or 4 hour music thing. And so, so I think maybe I don't know if he had anything to do with it or not, but yeah. So I got that show in 2017. And then we've always had just a really good relationship. And then they asked me, hey, what do you think about this concept for Proton called Amplified? And I'm like, that sounds really good. Thanks for asking me to be involved in that. And I know a lot of good DJs that are in Seattle. So we can just start right there. And then they asked me to curate their featured artist program as well. So
how does Amplify work for folks that maybe haven't listened to it?
So Amplified is really the concept behind that is just to give opportunities and voices to traditionally marginalized folks. So that whether that be people of color, women, LGBTQ, those communities. So the idea is just to amplify those voices. So I'm really proud to be part of that and in on the ground level of that. And then the other thing they asked me to do was just pilot this thing because they started doing DJ mixes for Spotify and Apple Music. So I was the first DJ that they had doing these mixes, and then they started bringing in everybody else. So yeah, I feel like it's been a really great partnership, and it's a really cool family, Proton is. And they really care about the artist and them making some money, instead of, not, because the business can be kind of hard in that way. So I support that 100%.
Yeah. And well, two things. I think the first thing is I appreciate that you're humble about this and that this sort of just came, but you're obviously delivering. I mean, I listened to your mixes. Your mixes are dope, and they have a very unique sound and flavor about them. And like I said, I sort of stalked your SoundCloud for a little while, just checking it out. But I was gonna ask you, and one of the things I was laughing about in the SoundCloud, because at I think one of the very last sentences when you're asked to describe your sound, you said it's indescribable. So I was going to make you describe your sound because I have my own opinions. But I was curious, like seriously, like I get it, like, but how do you describe your sound? Because it is unique, and there's a theme, even though it's different in different mixes from what I've heard. There's definitely some tie-ins, like even with the track that you did with Marcel, right?
Yeah.
Like there's elements that really I noticed throughout all these different mixes. And I'd love to hear like how you describe your sound if you had to tell somebody.
It's funny because I've even asked my friends, and they can't even describe it. So I mean, I would say for me, what I want to play is what I'm interested in hearing.
Yeah.
And those are usually the tracks that I want to play. So things that interest me have layers to them. If you're going to have a vocal in it, I want it to be meaningful for me to play. And I want the sound to take the listener and me on a journey, right? So I don't, I want it to be like you're in your car and you turn this on and you want to hear the whole mix. You're not like turning it off after like you're 2 songs in, because whoever has curated that mix is very invested in producing the best that they can. And so that's how I see myself, as a curator and whatever you call that, a guide on a journey.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I was working, so I have a regular job as well, and I hate spreadsheets, I hate Excel, but I spent about an hour and a half in Excel, and you were my soundtrack today. And it was so helpful because that is just not my thing, building PowerPoints and doing Excel. But yeah, it was, and for me, like when I'm listening to and you brought up Burning Man, which I wanted to ask you a little bit about, but there seems to be, like I said, there's kind of this desert theme vibe.
Yeah.
There's almost like a world music element to it too. That, I mean, and what's so cool is that it's so different than the stuff that I play and like the stuff that I seek out, but I love it nonetheless. And, and it's just, when I hear stuff that's so different from what I'm into and what I seek out, but I'm into it, then it's so fun to hear. Like, it's just fun to get immersed in it.
Yeah.
And it is a journey. So does Burning Man, I guess the first question, how does Burning Man sort of feed into what because you've been several years, right?
Yeah. We started going in 2016. Yep. And then we missed the years that they didn't do it.
Right.
Which I think was 2020 and 2021. I think it's just been definitely a progression for me in terms of genres. And I think now I'm at a point in my life where I can kind of fold all of those different genres, especially if I have like an hour and a half or 2 hours,
for sure,
and really go. I feel like an hour, we can get there, but there's really not a whole lot of ramp up time.
There's not room to breathe, though, right? Like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so you have to go there. But for me, you go to Burning Man and you definitely hear all different kinds of music, and it's amazing. You get exposed to a lot, but there are special times, certainly at sunrise and sunset. Sunrise is probably my most favorite time in the desert at Burning Man.
Yeah.
It's just special. Yeah.
Like
and
the veil is thinner, right?
Yeah.
Like yeah.
And then you see the sunrise, and then the sun is up, and then it's like, okay, it's time to go to bed. Because you've been up all night, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's definitely that sound of, and I love the vocals that just kind of go on top of that.
A little bit ethereal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that has some air. And I also like the driving beat too.
Yep.
So it's like, it's a kind of a juxtaposition for me of both of those things. And they just go so well together, I think.
Well, and one of the mixes I was listening to today, it could have very easily gone dark, and it didn't. like you towed this fucking line that was so perfectly not like it could have gone that way, a bad trip or whatever, right? But it didn't. It was like it left the door open, but it never went. And I just thought that was so cool that you were walking that line. Maybe it's because I was doing a spreadsheet, but you were walking that line, right? Of like, because those elements, a lot of those elements could be dark sometimes, right?
Yeah.
The ethereal voices, the driving beat, like they can also be super meditative. And
yeah. I think that the key there is like even within the mix, I never have one genre.
Yeah.
I find that not interesting, you know, for me to put together unless it's, I mean, it could happen, but I like to have just a little bit of everything.
Right.
And then the challenge for me is to make it make a good story or a good journey, you know. So, like, how I go about, I don't know if this is a question, but
no, it's like you read my mind, because I was gonna ask you, like, both your mixes, structuring your mixes, and then also now that you're producing tracks as well, which I imagine there's similar thoughts around it. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say a little bit about how I pick my tracks.
Yeah.
For the mixes, and you know, probably just like you, there's like hours that you spend on whatever you spend it on. You download a bunch of stuff, or I download a bunch of stuff, and those sounds are still kind of in my ear, and then I put it into a playlist, right? And it's amazing to me that it's very rare that after I put it together, that I'm like, no, that one doesn't go in there. I've gotten pretty good at that, you know?
Yeah.
I almost, like, even like the last couple of mixes, even, it's like the keys have been, and I don't even know what the keys are. I don't. I mean, I feel like if I want this in there, it'll work.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. But yeah, that's basically me going on the hunt. And you know, my wife is always like, "You going to download more music? Don't you have enough already?" Yeah. I'm like, "Sure, but you know, why not?"
You can never. It's funny. I found an old Beatport crate that I totally forgot about. It was like from 2 years ago, and I went back and I was like, "Oh, I wonder what's in this." You know, I hadn't bought these tracks yet, and I went and listened to it. And I'm like, man, I guess I still have good taste, because you know I just bought them all after. You know, like, it's funny. It's almost a subconscious. It feels like sometimes who's choosing this music. You're choosing it for a reason, even though you're banging through a playlist or whatever, grabbing stuff, and then you listen more closely and you're like, yeah, that actually makes sense. Like, there's something else in the operating system. Totally.
Right? I mean, it feels like, sometimes it's kind of like, oh, that was better than I thought it was gonna. Totally. Like that, like what just happened there? It's almost like it's like a channel or something like that. Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
You put it very, very well. It's making me think about. So I was having this thought the other day about that. Like, there's, with that Beatport crate, like, there's something obviously deep somewhere. I like these certain sounds and these certain kind of bass lines and these certain drum structures, and you know. Yeah. But so tell me, now you've been producing for how long?
Not that long.
Okay, that's so, let's talk about that a little bit.
So the first track I did, I want to say it was 2022, and it was with my friend Matthew Jensen, who is Monotropa.
Yep.
And we spent, I think, maybe like 4 sessions, and that was the first. Actually, it was a track before that I did with another friend, and then this was the second track. And then again, somebody at Proton was like, why don't you just start a label? And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, you know, we can help you, blah, blah, you know, all this stuff. So I'm like, well, it's really not a cost to it. I mean, there is, like, you know, I do promo and stuff like that. However, you know, as a Proton is the distributor. So I was like, okay, I can do that, So I looked into it and I was like, okay, so I better start an LLC just to, do that. And then I was like, okay, I have this label. I better start getting some music produced.
Yeah.
Right. So I self-released the first track that I worked on with Ian Phillips. I don't know if you know him. Drawbird.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I actually gave him a track. And I just, I was just like, I need some help with this because it does not sound like anything that would go on the radio. It needed to be produced. It needed work. So he was like, sure. We worked on it. And I did the first thing because I'm one of these people, like, I'll just try stuff.
Sure.
And if it doesn't work, it'll be, okay, well, that didn't work. So now let me try something differently than that. So I distribute it through SoundCloud.
Okay.
And they distribute it to a couple of different places like Spotify, Apple Music. But I found like there were some things that weren't so great about that distribution, right? So I didn't get on Beatport. So it was kind of like, well, and I didn't know that. So you don't know what you don't know until you find out.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, the next track, I'm going to get on a label. So who do I ask? Of course, Ramiro, because he's got the label. I'm like, Ramiro, I got a track, can we work together? And he was like, absolutely. So we did that track. And I think, like I said, it was either 2022 or 2023. I think it was 2022. And so then after I got the label going, like I said, I was like, well, I'm going to need some music. So I set a goal for myself this year, because the label started last year, like in July, that I was going to do 10 tracks. And
in a year, or just since the start of the label? What was your rule?
This year.
Oh, got it.
So I had to challenge myself and say, like, I've got to set a goal, because if I don't, it's not going to happen, right? So I've got the track out with Marcel. I've got this track coming out with Joe. I've got another track coming out in September.
Nice.
And then I've got a couple of more things in the works with other DJ producers that want to release on my label. So that'll happen this year. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So what was the like the moment in time where you said, well, you're obviously a music lover. You're obviously have very discerning taste with your own mixes and things like that. What was the moment where you're like, I should just be making my own tracks? Because I got it on the label piece, but when you know what I mean?
I think, again, like, we know how much time we spend looking for music. Yeah. So I'm just kind of like, well, I could probably create something that I'd like to play.
Yeah.
And that's when it kind of all clicked. It was like, okay, I have the label. And I kind of tooled around, like I said, with this track, the first track that I self-released. And that was like 10 years ago. Like, I put this track together and I taught myself on the software. I think it's a FL Studio.
Yeah.
And that was a journey. So it was 10 years in the making.
Okay.
And so after that, it's like, oh, it can't be 10 years again. It's like,
so let's do 10 tracks in a year.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be quicker, and so the idea to work with other producers that actually know how to operate the software will get me there a lot quicker, and then I can learn along the way. I got an Ableton Push that I left in the closet for like 2 years. I'm like, okay, I need to do something with this. So
when you like, for instance, when you did your thing with Joe or with Matt, they're mostly driving Pro Tools, and you're kind of riding on the shoulder and sort of executive producing.
So we'll start a track with like what instruments we want, and then just build based on that. But it always starts with that, and how long we want it to be, what key we want it in. And it's just been a really great collaborative experience, because there is that give and take, and there is, it's not all one person wants this or all one person. And that's what probably my happy place for sure. It's like when that collaboration can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With all the producers that I've talked to, I mean, there's definitely a love of doing it on their own, but I think a lot of the ones that I've talked to also love to collab, maybe not all the time, but just to get new inspiration, get new input, a different personality of the track.
Yeah. I mean, because sometimes you get stuck, right?
Yeah.
Or you've got like 50 versions and somebody needs to like say, let's get it in the can and let's get it off to the label. So that is very helpful, I think, for however many people you have in that collaboration.
Yeah. There's that whole it's if you keep looking at it, it's never done.
No.
So you just gotta ship it.
And then you find something else over here, and then it turns into something completely different, which is great. But you'll never get, nothing ever gets released, and so I definitely don't want to be that person. Like, I feel like there's stuff here that I want to get out, and as long as that's there, I'm going to continue, creating and producing music.
So between choose your favorite child, right? Between DJing and producing, or can you? Is there one that you enjoy more than the other, or is it just the level of enjoyment? It's just a different kind of enjoyment.
That's an interesting question. To me, they're very different.
Yeah.
Because the energy that you receive from the crowd is just so different than being in the studio and creating. However, that joy that you feel when you actually got this idea out of here and actually on to a track, and it, there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
So it's, I would have to say that they're very different, but fulfilling, and fulfilling in very different ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That I can imagine, because DJing is that almost euphoric moment in time, especially when it's a good gig, right? Like, I'm just referring to good gigs. We've all played not so good gigs, but like those the ones that keep you coming back, the one out of 5 or 10 where it just blows your
right,
it knocks your socks off, right? And but it is a moment in time, and it kind of dissipates. And I'm sure when you produce a track, it dissipates. I've never produced a track. I've kind of co-produced on some things, but that was a while ago. But having that thing out there forever, right?
Yeah, and in a mix. So I'm always the one, like, for my tracks.
Yeah.
I play them. There's some DJs that I don't, for whatever reason, if they've produced something, they don't play it. And I'm like, well, if I don't play it, who else is going to play it?
Right.
So I better play it.
Right.
Because I want people to hear it. It's out there.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm with you. I like, why produce it if you're not going to play it? You don't have to play all your tracks all the time. I know there's some DJs that even do that, which, like,
here's the playlist. We already know what it is.
But yeah, playing your own tracks I think it's a cool thing to do, and I think that's in hearing your own track played by some other DJ in their mix too. That's got to be a little bit of a mind bender, right?
That's okay. So yeah, I mean. So Julie Herrera.
Yep.
She's played that track with Monotropa a few times. Like, I was like, I'm in the audience. I'm like, oh my God, that's my track.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's super cool. It's super cool to hear that.
And watching as an attendee, watching the crowd.
Yeah.
That's gotta be something.
Yeah. And then every once in a while I'll get like the report, like it's been Shazam, so I'm excited.
Oh,
I'm excited. It's like, you've got like, 4 or 5 Shazam, so it's nice.
Yeah. So is there a goal with the production? Is it just keep on? I know you have this sort of that short term, 10 songs in a year. Is there a larger goal for the production piece for you, or is it just an outlet for you right now, or a little bit of everything?
So I definitely want to continue creating music, and I also want to have that be an outlet for artists that want to have their stuff out there. As if it's good quality, I want to have that on my label.
Sure.
And I'm not one of those labels that says, well, it has to be this genre or that genre. To me, I don't care about that. It's more about, is it good? If it's good, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. So music aside, and we'll come back to music in a second here, but is there, what do you do outside of music? Do you do anything outside of music? Do you have any other hobbies? I heard gardening earlier, right?
Yes, there's gardening. I actually do a little bit. I'm kind of hesitating about that. I don't know if it's a hobby or not, but I journal quite a bit. Okay. So I have a blog that I have kind of let go to the wayside here for like the last couple of months because it's just been so busy. But that journal is like, I actually turned that into a little book that I self-published on Amazon. So I wanted to do another one of those, but I just haven't had time to. Yeah, it's been pretty all-consuming right now. So basically what I do is I'll work probably 6, 7, 8 months out of the year traveling. And then I come back for the summers. Okay. And I take the summers off.
Okay. So
and that's devoted to music.
You say you work, you mean like I didn't even ask you what because I know you worked for Starwood initially. Are you in hospitality? Okay.
Yeah, so I decided I didn't want to be like 9 to 5 permanently in any role. So I do contract work. So basically if somebody says, hey, we're missing a GM at this hotel, can you come? Then I go. I try to restrict that travel to this side of the coast so that I'm not on a plane for 5 or 6 hours coming and going. And so usually it's down in California someplace.
Okay.
And so it's only a couple hours, and then I come home every other week and, get a chance to reconnect with family and friends and stuff like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's kept me pretty busy.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it also is paying the bills.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No complaints.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay. Because I've seen on social media where you're traveling here or there, but you travel a lot, but it's not always for work, or is it always kind of for work and then you have fun doing it, or what? So
it's pretty much for work, except for last year was a little different. The last 2 years were very different. Okay. So it was still for work, but then there was I went to Berlin, then I went to Greece, and that was with Proton Radio.
Okay. Maybe I saw some pictures from Greece or something like that. Yeah.
And then last year for my wife's birthday, we went to Spain. So we went to...
No, that was it. It was Spain. Okay.
Yeah.
That rings a bell.
Yeah. So we went to Barcelona and Madrid.
Yep.
And then when I came back, I was basically back for 2 days, and then I had the Proton retreat to Greece. And then at 2 days after I came back from Greece, they called me back to work. So they were like, can you come back to work? I'm like, okay. When? In 2 days. I'm like, okay.
Nice. What is the Proton retreat like in Greece? Because that sounds terrible. That sounds just absolutely awful. I've seen pictures of Greece. I've never been to Greece, and it's top of my list for my wife and I. She's been twice, but yeah, I still have to go.
It was so much fun. Obviously, I'd never been there.
Yeah.
Great weather in October.
Yeah.
It was great.
Jesus.
And, getting a chance to really connect with the Proton crew was awesome because we're all remote, right? There's no office.
Okay. How many are there? How many people are involved with Proton?
Wow. I don't actually know that number, but is
it less than 50, more than 10 kind of thing?
I think it's probably about at least 40 to
Got
50
it.
maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Fair, good side.
we
decent
have
side.
an operations team, and then which I'm part of, and then we have an engineer side, obviously.
Gotcha.
And so it was really good. So, you know, when you're on one, you don't really interact too much with the other ones unless you have a problem with, and then the engineers will help you out. So it was really good to actually meet people, you know, face to face, spend time with them, you know, relax.
What a cool project, though, right? Like,
yeah.
It's just amazing that there's enough people doing the same thing in different parts of the world that they converge and Greece.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just wrapping my head around that right now. It seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah. It was, yeah, it's nice. This year, I'm not going to be able to go because I'll be at Burning Man, and they'll be someplace. And I was just like, I can't do it.
The Burning Man's like around the corner, no?
We were talking about it today. I'm like, it's next, like we're in the RV leaving on Friday.
Right. Like it's coming up.
I mean, we must be crazy because we've got friends coming up like tomorrow, and they're going to Burning Man too.
Okay.
So I don't know what
are you all
anybody's
rolling
thinking.
Together, or
no?
Oh, they're just visiting.
Like they're in the Bay Area, so it's just we're like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, we're coming to visit. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys, so okay, back to Burning Man. I've never been. It was on my list forever, and then it kind of wasn't, and now it is again. and I talked to a good buddy of mine. They're a crew out of DC, and they both went with their wives, and they said it was the best and worst of times they've ever had in their life.
When did they go?
They went probably 10 years ago is when I was talking to them.
Okay.
Yeah, they said it was just their first Burning Man experience, you know. Partially because they were with their significant others. Yeah. Partially because it was the first time they didn't know what to expect. Yeah. You know, it was all brand new. Yeah. They were babies. But so you guys actually drive down to Burning Man. You're old pros. You stay in your RV?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the first year I'm like, the only thing is because that was my bucket list all those years ago. Yeah. And I was like, I'm from Chicago. I don't camp.
Right.
So it's going to need to be an RV. I'm going to need to, like, if I need to go to the bathroom, yeah. All of that stuff. And so we've just rented an RV every year. Okay. And so probably could have bought an RV at this point, but then where are you going to store it, you know? Yeah. So it's just easier, you know, just to do that. And it's definitely a longer drive from here than it is from San Francisco. Yep. Like 100%. Yep. But what we do is like we'll just take a break because we could drive all the way through, but why? Yeah. you know, force it, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So we take our time. That's why we leave on Friday. And sometimes we get an early admit pass and we help the camp get set up. And sometimes
that was going to be a question. You're associated with a certain camp?
Yeah, we camp. We camp with Vice, so it's Vietnamese iced coffee. So we do Vietnamese iced coffee, nice, Thai iced tea, wow, and Bloody Marys. Okay. And then last year we did this thing where we serve spiked coffee. I never tried it, but I think it's just vodka. They just put a little bit of vodka in there, but it's fun, you know. They're like we're adults. We've been doing this 4 minutes, so if we say we're going to do something, it gets done, you know. So I kind of like that, you know. There's a few commitments, but it's not crazy like some camps can be. Like if they have an art car especially, it's like there's a lot of work, right? You know, so I mean it's a huge commitment. So why did you take it off your list? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's all hearing different people's experiences. And then, you know, you talk to somebody every year, it's like, oh, it's not like it used to be. And you're just like, but you're going to hear that it's funny. I obsessed about Burning Man, probably since the 90s. I read all the books and, you know, I was ready to go and I just never went. I never pulled the ripcord on it. So, but yeah, I think it's something I have to experience before I leave this place.
I mean, if it's been in your mind, I think you just go for it. Yeah. And, you know, the saying is you don't get the burn that you want, you get the burn that you need. So, like a lot of things in life,
Yep.
we think we need this or want this, and
it ends up being
we don't
something
know.
entirely different.
We have no idea, no clue.
So are you playing down there when you're going?
Yeah, so one year it was just ridiculous because it was like, I don't know how many gigs I had, and I was just like, no. So this year I have 4. I'm gonna do one with Air Pusher because this is actually the last year that we're gonna have the ship.
Okay.
I don't know what we're gonna have after, so I definitely want to do that. I'm gonna do a couple of other camps too, and so I think maybe I have 4.
Okay.
Which is very reasonable.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
I don't like running around and like having to be someplace, because what I love about Burning Man is that you can just unplug from it, right?
Right.
Like, I'm not reachable. Like, you can text me all you want. I'm not getting it until I start getting service when I'm driving out.
Right.
And so that's really appealing to me because it's like a forced thing.
Yeah, it's a forced technology diet for sure.
Yep.
But you set up these gigs. You're going to do these gigs. I assume they're not paying, or do they pay you?
Oh, no.
It's just fun. Maybe on a good sound system, maybe on a shitty sound system, depending on what's going on.
Well, so I've got one on an art car axolote, which last year I was supposed to go on, and I couldn't find the car. So I'm like, okay, this year we need a meeting point. And then it's not about that really. Yeah. But that's the other reason why, like, I do this in my real life. So I really don't want to sign up for like a bunch of that.
Right.
There.
Yeah.
So it has to be meaningful for me. So 2 of them, definitely, all of them are, because people that I know have asked me. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to Burning Man, does anybody need a DJ? Right. That's the biggest joke ever, because they all need a DJ.
Do they? And did they ask you to bring all your gear then?
Oh, no.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Not you, but the ones who put out the note on the boards that like anybody want a DJ for Burning Man.
So they have these things called sound camps. So they typically have their own gear.
Okay.
And it's I have heard of that though, like on the playa, and I'm like, I couldn't do, because you're on a bike.
Yeah.
Like, you bring your all-in-one on a bike. I guess you could.
I guess you could. I bet there'd be a couple of those running around this year. Who knows?
Oh yeah, you see just a little bit of everything for sure.
No clothes, but you got some DJ gear. Good.
Right.
Yeah. But I'd imagine playing, and have you had the gift of playing like a sunrise set at Burning Man?
So that was one I played on Air Pusher. I think it was 2019. I want to say it was 2019. And it was on this, it was out in what we would call deep playa. So it's like past everything. And they have this ring set up, and it's called Sonic Runway. And it was beautiful, right?
I bet.
But that was one of those times where I had a set prepared and I had to reverse the set, because what I was left with was like really high energy stuff.
Yeah.
So I had to start high and then go
And you
low.
had it built so it was like starting from here.
And then they just have that. And it actually wound up being, like, I don't know who was there, but it wound up being recognized on Billboard dance. Like, it was written up. Somebody had to tell me, because I had no idea.
Holy shit.
And it was like, it was like the 9th mix.
One of the 9th most memorable Burning Man.
Yeah. So I was just like,
how cool is that?
Who was that? Who was there? Yeah. So it was like those kind of things. But it's always just, it's just magical.
Yeah.
As you're seeing it turn and the colors in the sky change. And, there's not a whole lot of people out there, but there's enough that appreciate what that is, so that makes
obviously somebody from Billboard, right?
makes it super special. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you never know. I mean, whether you're doing something like we play at the beach sometimes, or whether you're at a club or, even a dead club, every once in a while you get some feedback. You're like, oh,
right.
Thank God I tried. Right?
Yeah, didn't phone that one in. Yeah.
And I don't get the sense that you phone any DJ sets in. I mean, honestly, like most of the people I talk to, they take it very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
What they're gonna play, why they're gonna play it. There's there's not a lot of phoning it in. There's some phoning it in. We know those folks too. But no, that's super cool. Yeah, the Burning Man thing fascinates me, and then being able to do what you love to do in that setting.
Yeah.
Sunrise or
yeah.
I can just imagine.
It makes it special. I mean, the art cars are their own thing too, sure. Because you're like trying to keep balance and hoping that you're not going to get thrown off
right.
while it's like making a turn. I mean, they can't go that fast, but still.
You can still fall off.
I mean, when you go, you'll see.
Yeah. It sounds like you're convinced I'm going, so I'm probably going to go at some point. I'm going to have to report back.
I mean, for sure. You took it off and now it's back on.
I know.
You're going.
It's what happened. Yeah, it's going to have to happen at some point. But so as far as like back to Seattle, what you're working on now, I know there's the label, there's the production thing. You have various DJ gigs going on. Anything specific? I know I mentioned the 12-hour party that's happening soon at Monkey Loft.
So this is where it kind of starts to wind down as we're prepping for Burning Man. And certainly when I get back, we're just dead. Yeah. So
how long are you gone, by the way? Is it like 7 days or more?
So we'll leave next Friday, and then we'll come back. Like, we leave super early on Sunday morning, like right that Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
We've never seen the temple burn because that would be just like a whole thing. And then we'd be there like for more days. I'm just like, no. So we'll do that.
A big traffic jam on the way out.
Oh my gosh. But it's so nice. Yeah. We have to edit that part out about leaving on Sunday because now everybody will leave on Sunday. Oh no. Just kidding. But then basically on Wednesday I'm back at Habitat.
Okay.
So we'll finish the season, and then we're going to Mexico on like the day after Habitat's last show. So I'm gonna have to pack like on Tuesday because we leave at 6:00 in the morning on the 19th. So we'll be there until the end of September. And then I'll probably start traveling for work again because that'll be the season.
Got it.
So we'll see. Usually something comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever play when you're traveling for work? You ever play out when you tie that in, or
if it's in the Bay Area, it could happen, but I really try to keep that separate because it's a whole different thing.
Sure.
So like I try, like if I come back here on the weekends, I'll play for sure.
Yeah.
But being down there, it just takes more because So I don't really seek those things out.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have management who's getting gigs for you. You're doing your own thing, right?
Yeah.
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 You don't have representation.
I thought about that, but I was just kind of like, maybe.
Seems like you're pretty goddamn busy as it is.
Right. I'm like, I'm probably okay.
I think you're all right. It sounds like you've structured your life in a way that's busy enough, but also you can kind of control the variables a little bit, right?
I mean, everybody needs like decompression time, like time away, just chill. And this really, what I'm doing right now really allows for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, we're kind of coming up on the hour. I didn't even realize it's my turn to time. This is what happens. But before you get on the decks and do a mix, I mean, anything else? Any shout outs? Any events? Any? I know we talked about productions that are upcoming. Anything that I forgot to ask you about that you want to get out there? I
don't think so. I mean, I did. So we did talk about the release that's coming out on the 16th, and then I have another one that's going to be released on September 6th. So it'll be right after I get back from Burning Man.
Cool.
So I'll have about 3 days to just like say, hey,
yeah,
go pick up this track. And then everything just kind of that's when I'm gonna like rest, I guess, because I feel like I've been going this whole summer.
Yep.
It's just like gas pedal to the floor, basically. So I build in a little time in September to take it easy, although Habitat is like a weekly.
Totally.
It's a weekly thing.
Totally.
It's happening.
But it's so good. Like I don't make it out there all the time. I try to make it out a few times for sure. But I love the timing of it. The weather's like
perfect, right?
It's always perfect. Like 95% of the time, the weather's perfect. It's just like such a good night.
And we have food.
Not too late.
Yeah.
Music, of course, is great.
Yeah. So that would be the only other thing I would add. That's every Wednesday until September 18th.
Got it.
And then that'll be the end of the season because the weather. The weather's been really weird this year, I feel like.
Yeah. But I think you'll probably get, the way it's been so far, I think it'll be good all the way up into your closer.
I hope so.
Yeah. I think it's going to be one of those years maybe where we see, where we'll get nice weather, and then like October 14th or 15th, the faucets turn on and they,
Yeah.
Yeah. This is why people come to Seattle and they're like, everybody's lying to us because it's so nice. I'm like, you just wait. Just wait till the back half of
until
October.
You get unending rain. So my wife is always like, oh yeah, you just go down to California when it goes like that, don't you?
So does she travel with you, or she holds it down?
No, she stays at home. She's got her own stuff going on.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, no, I really appreciate the time. Thanks for coming in. I'm really excited to hear what you do back there.
Well, thanks for having me. This has been awesome.
No,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I know. I've been trying to wrangle you for a while. You like I said, I think what originally happened is someone sent me one of your mixes like 2 years back. And then I started digging in a little bit, and I was like, "Yeah, it'd be really fun to talk to her, see what makes her tick." So, you're one of those people like was on my list before the show was even happening. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I appreciate you coming in. It's been fun. Well, all right.
That's
it. We're good.
To the decks.
To the decks.